So I think that's a good jumping off point, actually, to move into group chat, where every week we kind of discuss a bigger topic. And this week, again, we're making some changes, some tweaks to the format. I kind of wanted to get out of the news cycle a little bit.
Sure.
And
because the news cycle is a trash fire right now. So yeah, sure.
Yeah, kind of. Well, and that's kind of one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is this idea of unplugging. You know, I can't remember if it was the last episode or the episode before that. We were sort of talking about how the news cycle has impacted the way you use social media and how addicted to it you are. And the flip side of that is knowing when to kind of unplug and disconnect. So let's start with when is the last time you just like completely unplugged for at least like a full day, Devendra?
Probably the last time I went to see my family in Georgia, just because they live kind of outside of Atlanta and they have Wi-Fi and everything. But when I'm hanging out with them, less of a reason for me to be checking Twitter all day and everything.
And how long ago was that?
I'm trying to think, September?
Okay.
Yeah.
Dana, when's the last time you just like unplugged from the internet for an entire day?
I don't do that. I haven't. I don't know if I've done that since the last time I was out of the country and didn't have a mobile data connection. That was years ago.
Did this suddenly become like a really depressing conversation for you?
Yeah, I don't really unplug. And I think you know very well that on vacations even, I would keep my internet connection if only to taunt you while you're covering for me while I'm on vacation.
Yeah. And then you also like to like just poke and forward emails and stuff, like and chime in on things when you don't need to be.
I'm the worst, guys.
Yeah, it's true.
Don't work with me. I am the worst.
So yeah, but I mean, I unplugged this weekend for a little bit. I didn't get quite as unplugged as I would have liked. Partially that's because the people around me didn't necessarily unplug 100%. And I was getting like at some point, my cousin's wife like walked in and was like giving me a news update, and I like shushed her. It's just like, no, this weekend is not about this.
Yeah,
it's like I'm gonna read my book. We are gonna get drunk and play Cards Against Humanity, and that's what this is about.
That sounds pretty good. Are you talking about unplugging just in general from like our crazy connected world or the insane news cycle? Because the news cycle is something else entirely right now too.
They are, but I think they're very tightly interconnected. So let's start with just the news cycle, because I think that's the lower barrier for entry here. Yeah. And then we can talk more about sort of unplugging from everything in general. So you know, I don't think it's any secret that like the news cycle, the constant barrage of everything is making people very tense and feel very stressed, no matter whether you're happy about the current political situation or not. Like it's a constant barrage.
And if you are not plugged in, you will miss news, important news.
Yeah. And that's kind of that FOMO, that fear of missing out thing. Like you don't want to be an hour behind finding out that we're banning other people from entering the country, or somebody else has withdrawn.
That's a wild Friday afternoon.
Yeah. But it is important, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure at some point you guys have done the same thing I've done, which is you've been sitting around watching TV or whatever else, and you're getting ready to go to bed, and you, for whatever stupid reason, pick up your phone and look at Twitter before you go to sleep. And instead of going to sleep, it turns into like an hour and a half to 2 hours of like reading Twitter, going to read the New York Times, like fighting with people on Facebook. And then before
I don't
you
do that.
What?
I don't fight with anybody.
You don't fight
on
with
Facebook.
people on Facebook. I mean, that's, to be fair, I try not to do that. But like it's one of those things where it's really easy to like disappear down a rabbit hole, and it stresses you out and makes it hard to sleep.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? Like, how do you have to have a point where you turn that off, right?
For sure. I think especially as Trump's presidency like started gearing up, like after he was inaugurated, it seemed like we had to be looking, like we had to see everything he was doing to make sure like he's not going to set the world on fire. And that sort of did happen. And after a week or so, I just decided like every night, if I'm having dinner or, I try to set aside some time where I'm not looking at news. And I also try to block out at least an hour every night just to read something else. So either on my Kindle or a magazine or something, just something that's not even related to the news cycle.
I tried that and failed.
Oh,
I was gonna say, do you have like a hard cutoff? Do you carve out time every day, Dana, to just like ignore the news cycle for even like an hour?
So after I brush my teeth at night, I crawl into bed, and ideally I'll be reading something. And I succeeded in reading a little fluff. I read some Runner's World. I read some Cooking Light magazine. I, too, have lots of interests, Terrence. But then last night, instead of grabbing a magazine, I took my phone and I opened Twitter, and I went to sleep when my eyes started closing. And basically, I almost fell asleep in bed with Twitter open on my phone. And I woke up and docked my phone and put it away. But that is how a lot of my nights recently have come to a close.
yeah.
Is that affecting your sleep at all, though?
No, I mean, I have crappy sleep for a lot of reasons, and I have weird dreams. I even dreamt one night that Engadget editors were calling elected officials to pitch Engadget stories.
That sounds pretty rad. We should be calling them just to yell at them. But, yeah.
And pitch a great feature idea to your local congressperson.
Let me talk to you.
But no, I don't think my sleep is necessarily any worse because of it.
I've always had trouble sleeping as well. Like, my whole family does. Like, I suffer from insomnia. I have night terrors and shit. It's horrible. But it's definitely the sort of thing that I can usually tie to things going on in my life in the real world. Like when I'm stressed at work, it's more likely that I'm going to have like these night terrors, or I'm going to have trouble sleeping. And I've definitely noticed that over the last couple of months, being so immersed in this news cycle, like just being constantly inundated by like Twitter alerts.
It's a whirlwind.
Yeah,
it's crazy. So when I saw a great Twitter post last night, somebody likened it to the Battlestar Galactica episode, the first one, where the silences keep coming every 33 minutes, and you can't sleep, you can't rest, because something is going to happen. You have to be prepared for the end of the world, and that's basically what it's felt like.
Yeah. I mean, every time my phone vibrates, I honestly get like momentary panic. Like I get a little like, is this a New York Times alert that something has gone horribly wrong?
The New York Times alert is that Adele won for best album, and you're like, stop it, don't scare me.
Like it's weird when your phone goes off and you look at it, and I forget who made this joke, and it's really a horrible joke, so I'm not gonna. But like, you look at it and you go, "Oh, thank God, it's just a celebrity who died." Like when that's like a relief that you go, "Oh, thank God, it's just Mary Tyler Moore."
Because we're just bracing ourselves for like something.
That's like a
terrible.
horrible place to be.
Yep.
And it's definitely been killing me. Like it's definitely been harming my sleep. And over the last week or so, I've been trying to, after dinner, not touch my phone.
That's probably a good call.
Like I get off of work, I'll go for a run, I'll go to the gym, I'll do whatever else I need to do. I cook dinner, and then after dinner, that's it. I don't touch my phone except for maybe clearing out email before I go to sleep. I don't check Twitter, and instead I've just like been reading.
So for me, it's funny. This isn't really unplugging at all, but I have been allowing myself a lot of crap TV. Like I could be on my couch with my phone in my hand, and I could be glued to Twitter, but in the background, I'm going to have either the Food Network or HGTV.
Been watching a lot of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Property Brothers, Fixer Upper, you name it. And so that's not really unplugging, right?
No.
Having that screen time, but it, in comparison, it feels like unplugging.
It's like side plugging. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
side plugging? What?
It's like it's second screen. You're just like, whatever. It's like it's just drifting past you.
I want to make that a thing.
Side plugging.
Yeah.
It sounds weird.
Yeah.
It's the more you say it, the more it sounds gross.
Yep.
So, but I mean, if you put down the phone though and just watched the bad TV, that's got to be at least somewhat better.
I think so. I think getting our minds completely away from this hellstorm is useful, like the internet in general, but this particular news cycle is pretty bad. So having that hour where I'm just like, okay, pick up my Kindle, I'm reading Haruki Murakami's book about running right now, which is fantastic and great. Things like that, just getting your mind away for an hour really helps. What I've noticed and what I really try to avoid doing is like the Twitter sync. Like you just like start scrolling and then somehow you're there and half an hour goes by and an hour goes by and you haven't done anything.
Nope.
you're just staring at Twitter, maybe retweeting a couple of things, not even participating. Like if I was actively tweeting and saying and contributing things, I feel like that'd be more productive.
So that is something that I caught myself doing more and more recently, which is one of kind of like the alarms that started going off in my head. Is like, this is not a thing I normally do.
Yep.
Like it used to be that I'd occasionally retweet something, like we're talking like twice a week, and usually it would involve some sort of commentary, and it got to the point recently over the last couple of months where I'm just like mindlessly doing it. Like I'm just scrolling through, retweeting things, like 5 a day as opposed to 2 a week.
Sort of national anxiety, basically, but yeah.
But that was like a warning sign to me. I was like, something's gone horribly wrong. And I kind of made a point to like actually unplug this weekend. And I think, completely disconnecting from the internet and from the modern world in many ways is also something that's like incredibly valuable, not just because of the current news cycle. It's easy to disappear down those holes, the Twitter hole, the Wikipedia hole, whatever it is, even if the world isn't on fire.
Yeah.
Like, and kind of getting away from that, which also I think is anxiety producing, right?
It is, yeah. Like we're just in a constant state of anxiety right now. So you kind of have to figure out the tools that you need to help you survive it. Like I've been doing like daily meditation between 5 and 10 minutes, which is nice. You might not think that's useful, but actually that act is sort of like what your brain should be doing while you're sleeping. Like it's processing anxiety and like things you should care about, and just like clearing your mind. That's useful. And the daily reading and trying to control, like you got to control yourself. Yeah. You kind of, it's sort of like you're on an airplane, right? And they say when the oxygen masks come down, put it on yourself before you help other people, because you need to be conscious to do that. So that's kind of how I see it. You kind of have to be de-stressing to survive.
Yeah.
I mean, so how do you de-stress, Dana? How do you like disconnect?
So we've talked about how I don't unplug, but I mean, in terms of keeping myself grounded, I do a lot of the things that I still enjoy, right? And I've come to terms with that I am allowed to be concerned as a citizen, but I'm allowed to still have joy in my life. So I can still go running every day, and I can see friends and laugh with them, and I can cook delicious food. And I mean, that's what life is all about, right? I don't have as many interests as you, but...
You're getting there. We're piling habits.
Yes.
We're piling hobbies on.
So that's, I mean, I at first, and I may have even spoken about this on the podcast, I initially, after Trump took office, felt some guilt about posting about frivolous stuff on social networks, especially Facebook, where I tend to be less political, right? Precisely because there isn't exactly a retweet button on Facebook. And even if there was, people aren't accustomed to seeing people post 5 times an hour. You'd get unfollowed if you did that.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm less political on Facebook. I post less often in general. I kind of save that for Twitter. And on Facebook, I've just sort of come to terms with the fact that I can post about stupid stuff and people won't be upset with me. Yeah. That it's okay.
So
Not stupid stuff, or even just stuff about me enjoying my life still.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have that. You have to have something that's not stupid, but a little bit frivolous, a little bit lighter-hearted. I try to meditate. I have mixed success. Generally, it's one of those things, like I try to get in the habit of doing it, and I succeed for like a week at a time, and then I kind of fall off, and day by day it gets less and less. But I do find that running is kind of meditative for me. Like that's like a good way to kind of clear my mind. I mean, do you have that experience at least, Dana? Is that like or are you still like, are you the person who listens to news podcasts while they run?
No, I listen to music. It's funny. I'm thinking of Mindy Kaling, who I think there was a chapter of her memoir that I think was, I'm paraphrasing. It was like murder fantasies I have while running on the treadmill. So I think the end product of running is that I get a lot of stress and aggression out, and I feel upbeat and satisfied in the end, but I am not necessarily thinking calm or happy thoughts while I'm running.
No, I mean, I don't know that it's calm or happy thoughts. I imagine that to at least some extent your mind works somewhat like mine, where it's always running a mile a minute. It's always... You tend to go to dark places occasionally.
Well, I have on some runs found clarity. I've had aha moments while running And I feel like in a way I'm more likely to have those aha moments while I'm running than when I'm sitting at my desk
Yep.
or lying in bed and ruminating.
I do a lot of like that sort of thinking about how to approach things at work while I'm running. Like I do a lot of that. It's a lot of like, that's my brainstorming moment by myself is I go out for a run. I put on my running playlist, which is, you know, at this point I know every song by heart on it. It may be like 3 days long, but it doesn't matter. I listen to it so much that it's just kind of like second nature. I lock into the groove. I go, but I do a lot of thinking about like how I approach work, how I do these sort of things. And like sometimes I get ideas about like something that I want to do or a project that I want to do at home and like that sort of thing. But I do feel like we also benefit from like unplugging for longer. Like that's nice to have that like hour or whatever it is that you go running and all I do is, you know, I listen to Cameron and DJ Khaled for like 45 minutes while I run and it's great. But there's also a lot of value in just like taking several days or even just like full day and just like deciding I'm not going to touch the internet. And not only that, I'm not going to touch my phone. And I think there's something to be said for not touching your phone, period. Like even if you're not looking at Twitter or looking at Facebook, even just something like pulling out your camera to take a photo of something like kind of takes you out of the moment of experience, whatever you're doing.
I believe that. I also think at this point I'd get twitchy in the beginning.
You will.
Which is not a twitchiness I necessarily want to experience on vacation.
So
don't put me through
with, ease off
I don't want to experience withdrawal symptoms on my what's supposed to be my time off.
So here's what I'll say about that. And I'm kind of looking forward to getting back into disconnecting more regularly. It's something that I used to do on a fairly regular basis. I used to do like a decent amount of backpacking and like hiking. A couple of years ago, I hurt myself, so that has not been happening as much. And just starting to get back into it. And like the first time you go out and you realize you have like no cell phone service, and the only person you have to talk to is whoever's literally standing right next to you, whether that's a friend you brought with you or a stranger you ran into on the trail. It's actually kind of nice. And while it gets a little bit stressful at first, you get over that really quick. And it's especially if you have something to distract you. I think like that's kind of the key to the disconnecting thing for extended periods of time is you need an activity. If disconnecting and like sitting in your apartment without internet,
staring at a wall,
that doesn't work. Going out and like brutalizing yourself by carrying 40 pounds of crap on your back for 16 miles, that works because you're too focused on trying not to like fall down and die and how tired you are to worry about what you're missing on Twitter.
Yeah.
You don't make hiking sound very fun.
Oh, it's the best.
That sounds like crazy hiking. Like I like the day hikes where you walk a couple miles or something, just like see the sights. You want to like go backpack and stay somewhere in the middle of the trail. Sounds like okay.
I mean,
you're insane. But I see your point. There's definitely a use for having like a day or two completely off. What I try to do right now is just the little things. Like if I'm having dinner with people, really don't need my phone out. Like I don't need to take Instagrams of everything anymore. One thing I have noticed too is like if I'm sitting and watching something, I like to just watch it.
Yes.
I like to focus on the TV shows I'm watching or the movies I'm watching. And so many times when I'm watching with other people, they're either on their computer or on their phone or a tablet or something. And I feel like we don't even really watch things as much anymore. So on top of like disconnecting, I also think we need to focus better on the other things we're doing.
That is something else that I've also found I do, and that's something that Dana, you were just admitting that you were doing, is you sit in front of your TV, but also have your phone out.
If your goal is to sit and veg, and like that's a useful, relaxing thing too.
You have more sophisticated taste in content, right? So if I were watching the shows and movies that you watch, I would probably
I have a list for you, Dana.
Give it my full attention. But if you were watching a rerun of Love It or List It that you'd already seen, you'd probably be doing something else.
But that to me, I like doing that too. But eventually, that starts to feel like the whole Twitter thing. Like I'm just refreshing this content, and it is adding nothing to my life. So the only exception is like Bourdain for me. Like I always feel like whatever I watch from him will inevitably give me something cool, and that relaxes me.
Dana, I want to challenge you to take a day off the internet. I really want you to do this. Just like a full day. Just
take away her router, everything.
Just like, you don't have to do it like this weekend, but like maybe in the next 2 weeks, just like take a Sunday, wake up, don't turn your phone on.
I don't have an out-of-town trip planned until early May, and that might be another problem in and of itself, that I'm stockpiling my vacation days for no reason.
That could be a thing.
Don't go anywhere. Just take a day where you don't touch the internet.
Don't touch the internet.
Just
go
like,
see people. Like, that's what I've noticed. Too.
Yeah.
Like, it's easier if like you go have brunch with friends. Like, that's your whole morning and part
I
of the
have
afternoon.
friends.
Come on, Dana.
I have friends, and I like brunch.
I'm not saying
There
we're
you
not
go.
saying you don't have friends
There
and
you
don't like brunch.
That's a good way to disconnect.
Yeah.
It's like you don't even think about it.
Here's what I suggest: is get up Sunday morning, text somebody, call somebody,
I'm having brunch Sunday, but that friend is bringing a baby.
Oh, even
and
better.
So
go to brunch, hang out with the baby. Don't take any photos of the baby. Don't.
And then your friends could be like, "Why aren't you taking photos of the baby? Is
Don't
my baby
don't Instagram
worthy?"
the child. Don't Instagram your brunch. Don't tweet about it. Just like hang out and be there in the moment. Then go home. You may go on the internet to look up a recipe, something new to cook. Give yourself a task and like a challenge.
You can print it out.
Yeah.
The day before.
You could do that, and then do the crossword puzzle, the New York Times crossword puzzle, and go to sleep.
I like
I
this
do the
prescription.
crossword puzzle on the app.
And now she's making a hair mustache. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I unplugged this weekend for a while, and it felt so nice. It was very relaxing. I definitely came back in a much better mood than I left in, and I don't even think that had anything to do with like taking a day
Didn't
off
you
of work.
like go on Twitter at some point to rant about something political? Did you?
Nope.
Didn't you?
Nope. I might have done that Monday night after I got back.
You didn't yell at Donald Trump on Twitter while you were gone?
Nope. I didn't look at Twitter once while I was on gone.
Okay.
Probably smart.
I went upstate Friday night. I almost died multiple times.
Okay.
Thanks to the snow. And then at some point Saturday, I walked out into the woods, and I literally stood in the middle of 6 inches of snow by myself for 15 minutes and just listened. That is all I did, and it was great.
That sounds pretty good. Yeah.
And then I went back to the cabin, put on a fire, drank a whole bunch of whiskey, and played Cards Against Humanity.
I was thinking about what I thought was maybe an unplugging moment. It really wasn't, because I used my phone to film it. I went to Maine last summer, and the best part of that vacation, there were a lot of great parts, but we were on this lake house with a dock, and we'd go out onto the dock each morning, and we'd feed the ducks. And it would start with one duck, and then the ducks would speak their duck language, and more would come. It'd be like 3 dozen ducks. Sorry, Shivani. Our producer off camera has a
full
phobia
flock of ducks. Just
ducks.
imagine that.
She is twitching right now.
Feeding the ducks was the best part, but then I filmed it with my camera, so that was not unplugging.
No.
The only worry I found from disconnecting a little is when you finally do get back, it's like, what fresh hell is this?
Yeah.
Like, you just get back and like something else in the government or the world is on fire, or something Trump did or one of his lackeys did. So my next project is figuring out how to like take that information and try not to let it consume me either, because you still have to live through your life while all of this is happening. So, yeah.
That's another challenge. That's
Yes.
that's perhaps a bigger and harder challenge. One for another day. I think short term though, we all need to like just disconnect every day. Like make a little time, and maybe once a week pick a day. Just don't go on the internet.
That's why movies, like actually going to the movie theater now, is even better, because so there are still some people who pull out their phones and stuff, but it does force you to like not
Put your
do
phone
that.
away.
Yeah.
I think that's a solid transition, by the way,
Okay.
to our next segment, which is going to be extraordinarily short, and we need a name for. So if you're a reader or a viewer or a listener or whatever it is, we need a good catchy name for this segment. It's basically just Engadget recommends. What we're reading, watching, listening to, whatever's kind of catching our attention, and whether it's important or helping us to relax or whatever it is, something that's we think is valuable, even if that's something on our own site that people should be paying attention to. So yeah, this is Engadget recommends, the first instance of this.
Yay.
Devindra, what do you got on?
I'm so looking forward to this segment, because this is what I do all day. I just finished The Young Pope, the new show on HBO, and I'd recommend it to everybody. It's fantastic. It's kind of like kind of surreal, but also beautiful. It stars Jude Law as he's a 40-something going on 50 dude, but as far as somebody who's made Pope, that's still relatively young. And the show's entirely about that. And like, what will this young person do? And people think he'll be very progressive, and it turns out he's not. And how does that affect the world? It's all about somebody who's ill-equipped to handle power coming into power, and it seems especially relevant today. So there's that, and also Haruki Murakami's book that I'm reading, What I Talk About When I Talk About Running.
I read
really
that.
good. It's really good. Yeah.
I need to read that. That's on my to-read list at some point.
Dana's making a stinky face.
And not stinky, but I did not enjoy
It's like his
it
journal.
I didn't enjoy it as much as other people led me to believe I would.
Do you like his stuff? Like that's
I do. I like Norwegian Wood. I found
Okay.
the book about running to be a little repetitive.
It's a journal. Like he's
he
literally
makes a lot
just
of the
like,
same points over
yeah,
and over
yeah.
again.
It's his daily journal that he printed out over a couple of years. But I love him as an author. He's one of my favorite authors. So just hearing him talk about it and what running did for him and how he's kind of managing his life. And he talks about like what you were mentioning, Terrence, like how running can help you deconstruct and reorganize your life a little.
Yeah.
So yeah, worth a read.
All right. Dana, what about you? What do you recommend people check out?
So I just finished a novel. It's not a new novel. It's been out a few years. I read Arcadia, which is takes place in a commune in the 70s in upstate New York. And the book spans many years after that. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah. My recommendation is I've been reading Bill Bryson's A Walk in the Woods, also not a new one. This is also one of these things that's kind of been making me want to get back out there and do some hiking and get back on the trail a little bit. For those who don't know, Bill Bryson's A Walk in the Woods is about him attempting to hike the Appalachian Trail through hike it from beginning to end, which is an absurd undertaking, especially for a man who, when the book starts, has no experience hiking, is out of shape, and is on the probably the wrong side of middle-aged for having done this. I won't, not too spoilery to say that he doesn't successfully through hike it, but it's still a super interesting read, and it kind of reminds you of the power of just, again, kind of like getting out there and disconnecting. This was like something I decided that I was going to read during my weekend while I was disconnecting. I was like, remind myself of what it's like to be out in the middle of the woods with everything I need to survive strapped to my back. And it's a lovely feeling.
Nice.
It's going to happen again. I hope so.
Okay.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the show. We will be back next week, and hopefully you will tune in. Devendra, in the meantime, where can find you on the internet?
Oh, I'm at Devendra on Twitter, and I also podcast about movies and TV at /film.com.
Dana, where can people find you?
Very simply, Dana Wallman on Twitter. No space, just my full name.
And I am at Terrence O'Brien. Lots of E's, no A's. Thank you for tuning in. Again, make sure to tune in next week. Subscribe in your podcast app of choice. Rate us on iTunes. All of that fun stuff. And if you have suggestions for a name for that segment, if you have feedback about the show in general, please hit us up. Let us know. You can find us on Twitter at our respective names as we gave. You can also hit us at Engadget Podcast on Twitter, or you can email us podcast@Engadget. So yeah, thanks for tuning in.